The bass pulsed like a heartbeat, loud and relentless, shaking the floor of Club Halo. Neon lights danced off mirrored walls, slicing the air in shards of red, violet, and blue. YN stepped inside with a practiced smile, the kind you wear when you're trying to convince the world, and yourself, that everything's fine. She wasn't here to drink. Not really. Not to dance either. She came for the feeling, the noise that drowns the thoughts, the crowd that replaces loneliness. She came to disappear. "Come on!" Her friend Mina yelled over the beat, pulling her toward the bar. "You said you needed to stop thinking about him. Tonight's about forgetting." YN nodded, even if forgetting felt impossible. She found her seat at the bar and let the music throb through her ribs, eyes scanning the crowd without meaning to. Bodies writhed in rhythm, hands touched strangers, and laughter bubbled like champagne into the haze of light and heat. And then she saw him. Across the club, near the far corner, a man leaned against the railing on the VIP level. He was dressed in black from head to toe, but something about him gleamed. Not just the piercings that caught the strobe lights, or the silver rings on his fingers. It was the stillness, the way he wasn't trying, and still people looked. His eyes flicked down and caught hers. YN looked away, instantly, her breath caught. She took a sip of her drink. Vodka and lime. Bitter. Cool. She turned her head again, cautiously. He was still looking. And then he smiled. Not a big one, just the corner of his lips, the kind that knows something you don't. She didn't smile back, but she didn't look away either. Moments later, he was gone. Vanished from the railing. Her heart kicked. "YN," Mina said beside her. "You okay?" She nodded, but the question echoed inside her chest like a warning. Because something inside her had shifted, and she didn't even know his name. The club's heat pressed in like a second skin, clinging to every breath, every movement. YN stayed rooted to her seat at the bar, fingers tracing the rim of her glass as her eyes scanned the crowd again. He was gone. Had she imagined him? "Be right back," she mumbled to Mina, slipping off the stool. She weaved through the dancers, past swaying bodies and flashes of skin and sweat, her boots crunching on something spilled and sticky. The throb of bass followed her like a shadow, and so did the memory of his gaze. Quiet, intense, full of something she couldn't name. And then she felt it. A presence. Not a touch, not a sound, just there, behind her. She turned. He was closer than she expected. Up close, he was even more magnetic. Jet black hair curling slightly above his brow, a lip ring catching the light. His all-black outfit clung to him like a second skin, sharp, tailored, and dangerous. Tattoos peeked from under his sleeves. "You lost?" he asked. His voice was low, smooth, and yet there was that teasing curl to it, as if he already knew the answer. "No," she said, forcing calm into her voice. "Just walking. You looked like you were searching for something." His eyes didn't leave hers, and her heartbeat didn't leave her throat. "Maybe I was," she answered before she could stop herself, a smirk, barely there. "Did you find it?" "Not yet." A silence bloomed between them, heavy, crackling, alive. Then he stepped closer, leaning down just a little. "Dance with me." It wasn't a question. She hesitated for half a breath, and then she nodded. He took her hand, warm, calloused, and led her into the heart of the floor. The music surged around them, drowning reason. The lights dimmed, leaving only red and smoke. And they danced. Not like strangers, more like they had met in another life. He moved like liquid fire, smooth, confident. Every movement intentional. Every brush of his fingers on her waist sent sparks racing up her spine. She matched him, letting herself fall into the rhythm, forgetting everything outside this beat, this man, this night. "What's your name?" she asked, breathless. Jungkook. And something about the way he said it made her wonder if he wanted her to remember it. What's yours? Y or N? His hand slid lower on her back. I'll try not to forget. She was about to speak, ask something, say something stupid, but then his lips brushed her ear. You taste like danger. Her breath caught, and her world spun a little faster, because she didn't know what was happening, but she didn't want it to stop. Waikai Sais En had never been good at resisting beautiful things, especially not ones wrapped in shadows and whispered with promise. And Jungkook was all of that, a fire lit beneath velvet, a storm with rhythm. Their bodies moved in sync, her breath hitching every time his hand skimmed her waist, or his fingers ghosted along her bare arm. The club's lights pulsed red, gold, violet, colors of temptation, and every time he looked at her, she felt like prey walking willingly into the lion's den. But she didn't stop. She didn't want to. He leaned in close, his voice a velvet thread in her ear. You came here to forget someone. She froze, just for a second, then looked up, startled. How? I've seen that look before, he murmured. In the mirror. His eyes gleamed under the strobe lights, not pity, not curiosity, just understanding, sharp and deep. And what about you? She asked. What are you trying to forget? He tilted his head, a small laugh escaping his lips. Everything! She should have walked away then, but instead she whispered. Then forget it with me. For a beat, he said nothing. Then his hand found hers again, firm, deliberate. He didn't pull her to the bar. He pulled her outside. The sudden chill of night air kissed her skin like a slap, sobering and thrilling. The music was muffled now, just a distant hum beneath the stars. They stood in the alley behind the club, bathed in the flicker of a broken neon sign. Jungkook pulled out a cigarette but didn't light it. Habit, he said, even when I don't want it. YN leaned against the brick wall, watching the way the cold made his breath visible. You're not what I expected, she said. And what did you expect? Another empty flirtation? A shallow night? He stepped closer. And now? She swallowed. Now I'm not so sure. There was a moment, a quiet, suspended breath between them. Then he pressed a hand against the wall behind her, boxing her in without touching her. You still want to forget? He asked, voice low. She nodded. His lips hovered inches from hers. Then don't remember this, he whispered. And then he kissed her. It wasn't a soft kiss. It was heated, rough with restraint, electric with need. Her hands fisted the fabric of his shirt as his body pinned her gently to the wall, his mouth tasting of vodka and fire and danger. Their breaths tangled like secrets. When they finally pulled apart, both of them trembling, she whispered, Take me somewhere quiet. He didn't ask again. He just took her hand and didn't let go. They slipped through the crowd like whispers, the city humming beneath their feet. Jungkook led her past velvet ropes, ignored by bouncers as if he were invisible or untouchable. A side door opened with a silent nod, and they climbed metal stairs lit only by moonlight. The rooftop wasn't what YN expected. No sweeping view of Seoul, just rusted vents, a few crates, and a flickering neon sign casting pink light across the concrete. Yet, here, with the wind threading through her hair and the music below, just a distant heartbeat, it felt like a world apart. Jungkook leaned against the railing, silent. Y or N stood beside him. He didn't touch her, didn't speak, just looked out at the darkness. You come up here often? She asked, breaking the quiet. When it's too loud down there, he replied, voice low. Sometimes I just need to breathe. She looked at him, studying the sharp line of his jaw, the storm behind his eyes. You're not just some guy at a club, she said, quietly. His lips twitched. Neither are you some girl trying to get drunk. Silence again. Then, you don't know me, she whispered. Jungkook turned toward her, finally. Number. But I want to. The honesty in his tone was unexpected. It shook something inside her, something guarded, something fragile. I wasn't supposed to be here tonight, she admitted. He said nothing, just waited. I broke up with someone. Or rather, he left. Said I was too much. That he needed someone easier. Jungkook's eyes flickered with something unreadable. He sounds like a coward. YN huffed out a bitter laugh. Maybe, or maybe I am hard to love. He stepped closer. I don't think love's supposed to be easy. She met his gaze, and this time didn't look away. Why did you come here tonight? She asked softly. Jungkook looked down at his hands, tattooed fingers curling against the rail. To forget my name. She blinked. What? I spend all day being someone people expect. Idol. Artist. Perfect. His voice cracked slightly. But when no one knows who I am, I get to feel human again. Her heart clenched. And without thinking, she reached up and brushed a loose strand of hair from his forehead. He didn't flinch, didn't move, only looked at her like she was the first real thing he'd seen in a long time. And in that moment, everything else faded. I don't need perfect, she whispered. I just need real. He leaned down, lips barely grazing hers, and said, Then come with me. And just like that, the decision was made. Two strangers, one night. No promises. Just the ache of wanting to be held and remembered, even if only for a few hours. The hotel lobby was quiet, the late hour silencing even the buzz of city nightlife. Jungkook's hand never left hers, not in the cab, not during the slow walk to the elevator, not even now, as the golden doors slid open and they stepped into the velvet silence of a world above the city. Neither spoke. There was no need. Their footsteps echoed faintly against the marble floor of the hallway as they approached the suite. He slid the keycard with one hand, while the other brushed lightly against her waist, grounding her. The door clicked. It opened into warm light and soft music playing from somewhere inside. She stepped in slowly, absorbing the muted golds and deep grays of the room. The floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over Seoul's glittering skyline, lights like fireflies blinking in the distance. He didn't rush her. He just watched her walk slowly toward the window, watched her take a breath. Still want to forget? He asked from behind. She turned to face him. I don't know anymore. Jungkook stepped forward, the space between them collapsing. His hands came to rest on her hips, gentle, firm. She looked up into his eyes, the city lights reflecting in them like galaxies. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to change her mind. She didn't. Their lips met again, but this time, slower, deeper, a kiss that lingered, asking questions and offering answers neither of them dared speak aloud. His hands slid beneath the hem of her top, fingertips grazing her skin, and a quiet gasp left her lips. She felt him smile against her mouth, not in triumph, but in relief, like he needed this too. He pulled her toward the bedroom, step by careful step, and she followed willingly. The lights dimmed. The door closed behind them. No words, only breath, only skin, only the silence between heartbeats before the fall. The curtains fluttered gently as the night wind whispered through the barely open window. In the quiet, there were no city sounds, only the faint hum of distant traffic and the rise and fall of breath. YN lay still in the sheets, her back to him, eyes wide open in the dark. She didn't know what time it was, or even how long it had been since sleep had left her. All she knew was the heat of his body behind her, the weight of the night pressing on her chest, and the silence that now replaced every heartbeat they had shared. Jungkook stirred, just barely. He didn't speak. His arm remained draped around her waist, gentle but heavy with everything they hadn't said. She didn't dare move, didn't want to break whatever spell was left in this borrowed moment. It should have been easy, just another night, just another face, just another goodbye. But it wasn't. Because she had memorized the curve of his lips, the way his breath caught when she whispered his name, the way his walls came down when no one was watching. And somehow that mattered more than it should. She blinked against the sting behind her eyes. "Are you awake?" he asked softly, voice husky with sleep. She didn't answer right away. Then, "Yeah." A long silence followed. Then he exhaled. "You okay?" Number not really, but she said, "I think so." He shifted slightly behind her, his fingers brushing her arm, hesitant. "You don't have to stay." The words fell between them like a brick, and she knew what he meant. This night, it was never meant to be anything more. They both came here to forget. So why did remembering hurt? She turned around slowly to face him. His hair was messy, eyes still heavy, and yet he looked at her like she was something fragile, precious, like he hadn't meant for this to feel real. "I wasn't supposed to care," she said, voice breaking. His throat bobbed. "Me neither." Tears slipped from the corners of her eyes, and he wiped them away with the gentlest touch. But neither of them said, "Stay," because it was never meant to last. And maybe that's what made it beautiful. The city outside was washed in gray. Morning had arrived quietly, without ceremony, without promise. The once vibrant skyline now looked like it was holding its breath, caught between night and something unnamed. YN sat at the edge of the hotel bed, the sheet wrapped around her like armor. Jungkook stood near the window, shirtless, silent. The light touched his skin, but not his face. He hadn't said much since they woke. And maybe that was the point. Maybe they'd said everything with their hands last night. And now, there was nothing left. She reached for her dress on the chair, slowly slipping it back on. Her movements felt heavier than they should. He turned as she stood. "Do you want coffee?" he asked, voice low, like he wasn't sure if he should even offer. She smiled, small, tired. "Number I should go." The words hung there, between them, final. Jungkook's jaw tightened, just a little. She walked toward the door, heels in one hand, hair messy from the pillow. She paused, just before opening it. "I wasn't pretending last night," she said without turning around. "I know. I meant what I said." "So did I." There was a beat. Then she asked, "Will you forget me?" Jungkook didn't answer. Not right away. When he finally did, his voice was barely a whisper. "No." She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the door handle. "Good," she said, voice trembling. "Then I won't have to forget either, Frau." She didn't look back. She couldn't. The hallway was too quiet, the elevator ride too long, the hotel lobby too bright. Outside, the city went on like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just given a piece of her soul to a stranger. But he wasn't a stranger anymore, and that hurt more than anything. The city outside was washed in gray. Morning had arrived quietly, without ceremony, without promise. The once vibrant skyline now looked like it was holding its breath, caught between night and something unnamed. YN sat at the edge of the hotel bed, the sheet wrapped around her like armor. Jungkook stood near the window, shirtless, silent. The light touched his skin, but not his face. He hadn't said much since they woke. And maybe that was the point. Maybe they'd said everything with their hands last night. And now, there was nothing left. She reached for her dress on the chair, slowly slipping it back on. Her movements felt heavier than they should. He turned as she stood. "Do you want coffee?" he asked, voice low, like he wasn't sure if he should even offer. She smiled, small, tired. "Number I should go." The words hung there, between them, final. Jungkook's jaw tightened, just a little. She walked toward the door, heels in one hand, hair messy from the pillow. She paused just before opening it. "I wasn't pretending last night," she said without turning around. "I know. I meant what I said." "So did I." There was a beat. Then she asked, "Will you forget me?" Jungkook didn't answer. Not right away. When he finally did, his voice was barely a whisper. "No." She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the door handle. "Good," she said, voice trembling. "Then I won't have to forget either, Frau." She didn't look back. She couldn't. The hallway was too quiet, the elevator ride too long, the hotel lobby too bright. Outside, the city went on like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just given a piece of her soul to a stranger. But he wasn't a stranger anymore, and that hurt more than anything.